My mother-in-law, Verona, just told 300 funeral guests that her son died to escape the shame of being married to me. What she didn't know was that my 8-year-old son, Keaton, had his father's phone, and on it was a recording that would destroy her entire family. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up just 5 minutes to when I was standing in the vestibule of Riverside Memorial Chapel, trying to stop my hands from shaking. My name is Shelby, and 5 days ago, my husband Damon died when a drunk driver ran a red light. He was 36 years old. We'd been married for 10 years, and now I was about to walk into his funeral service where his mother had made it crystal clear I wasn't welcome. "Mom, my stomach hurts," my son Keaton whispered beside me, clutching his father's phone like it was the most precious thing in the world. He hadn't let it go since the accident. At 8 years old, he was the spitting image of Damon with those same green eyes and stubborn chin. Right now, those eyes were red from crying, and he kept checking the phone screen every few seconds, like he was waiting for his dad to text him back. "I know, baby," I said, kneeling down to his level. "Mine hurts too, but we need to say goodbye to Daddy, okay?" My 5-year-old daughter Penny stood on my other side holding my brother Garrett's hand. She wore the black velvet dress Verona had sent over, the one with the price tag I'd accidentally seen. $800 for a child's dress she'd wear once. That was Verona in a nutshell, throwing money at every situation, believing cash could buy class, respect, even love. "Shelby, we should go in," my mother Louise said softly, touching my shoulder. "People are waiting." People. Verona's people, specifically. The chapel was packed with her country club friends, business associates from the real estate empire she'd built, and relatives who'd spent the last decade pretending I didn't exist. I recognized maybe 20 faces out of 300, and most of those were from my side. My parents, Frank and Louise, my brother Garrett, my Uncle Porter and Aunt Bethany, a handful of friends from the restaurant where I worked. Yes, worked, present tense. Because even with a funeral to plan, I couldn't afford to miss more than a week of shifts. That's what Verona never understood about people like me. We don't get to pause life for grief. Bills don't stop coming just because your heart is broken. The organ music started playing, and I knew we couldn't delay any longer. "Okay, everybody ready?" I asked, though ready was the last thing any of us were. We walked down that center aisle like we were heading to war instead of a funeral. I could feel every eye on me, hear the whispers starting already. "That's her, the bartender. Can you believe she wore something so plain? Verona must be mortified." Verona sat in the front row like a queen on her throne, draped in designer black that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her pearl necklace caught the light from the stained glass windows, and her professionally styled silver hair didn't have a strand out of place. When our eyes met, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. The service started normally enough. The pastor spoke about Damon's life, his accomplishments, his dedication to family. Friends from his college days shared stories. His business partner talked about his integrity. It was all very proper, very controlled, very Verona. Then she stood up to give the eulogy. At first, she talked about Damon as a child, how he'd won science fairs and debate championships, how he'd graduated summa cum laude from Princeton. She spoke about him joining the family business, expanding their real estate portfolio into commercial developments. For a moment, I thought maybe grief had softened her. Maybe she'd finally let go of her hatred for me. I should have known better. "My son's final years were complicated," she said, her voice carrying through the chapel with practiced authority. She gripped the podium's edges and looked directly at me. "He made choices that disappointed our family deeply." My father, Frank, tensed beside me. Louise grabbed my hand. Keaton looked up at me with confusion in his eyes. "He chose a path that led him away from everything we'd built, everything we'd planned for him," Verona continued. "But perhaps God, in his infinite wisdom, has freed my son from the burden of that choice." The words hit me like physical blows. She was standing at her son's funeral, turning his death into an opportunity to hurt me one last time, and 300 people were listening, some of them actually nodding along like this was appropriate, like this was normal, like this was anything other than pure cruelty. The morning of Damon's funeral started with Keaton refusing to let go of his father's phone. I found him at 5 a.m., sitting in his bedroom closet with the device pressed against his chest, watching old videos of Damon teaching him to ride a bike. "Mom," Dad said, "if anything happened to him, I should keep this safe," he whispered when I sat down beside him on the closet floor. The phone screen was smudged with fingerprints and tears, and I noticed he'd changed the wallpaper to a photo from last Christmas, all four of us in matching pajamas, Damon holding Penny on his shoulders, while Keaton and I made bunny ears behind his head. "Sweetheart, we need to get ready soon," I said gently, but Keaton shook his head. "Dad told me something important about this phone. He said I'd know when to use it." His green eyes, so much like his father's, held a seriousness that no 8-year-old should possess. "He made me promise, Mom." The last time I saw him, he made me promise. I didn't push. Grief makes children do strange things, and if holding onto that phone helped Keaton feel connected to his father, who was I to take that away? I had my own strange grief habits, wearing Damon's, college sweatshirt to bed, making his coffee every morning even though no one would drink it, leaving his muddy running shoes by the front door because moving them felt like accepting he'd never need them again. Our house that morning was full of people trying to help. My mother Louise had been cooking since 4 a.m., filling the kitchen with casseroles no one would eat. My father Frank sat at the dining room table, polishing his one pair of dress shoes over and over, needing something to do with his hands. My brother Garrett had driven up from Atlanta with his wife Bethany, and they were trying to keep Penny distracted with coloring books and cartoons. "Shelby, you should eat something," Louise said, pushing a plate of toast toward me. "I can't," I admitted. Food felt impossible. Everything felt impossible. The truth was, our marriage hadn't been perfect. No marriage is when you're constantly fighting against someone who wants you to fail. Verona had made our lives difficult from day one. She'd tried to pay me to leave Damon before our wedding. When that didn't work, she'd convinced him to work for her company, then use that position to control our lives. Mandatory dinner parties where she'd introduce me as Damon's wife, but never by name. Business trips scheduled during Keaton's birthday parties and Penny's recitals. Constant comments about how I was holding Damon back from his potential. But we'd survived it all. We'd built something real in spite of her interference. Tuesday night family dinners where Damon would help Keaton with homework while I taught Penny to make pizza dough from scratch. Saturday morning runs together while the kids rode their bikes beside us. Sunday afternoon trips to the farmer's market where Damon would buy too much fruit and then spend the evening teaching the kids to make jam. "The car's here," Garrett announced, looking out the window at the black funeral home limousine. Verona had insisted on handling all the funeral arrangements. "You wouldn't know what's appropriate," she'd told me at the hospital while Damon's body was still warm. "This needs to be done right." He was someone important, even if you never understood that. I'd been too shocked to fight her then. My husband had kissed me goodbye that morning, promised to pick up milk on his way home, texted me a heart emoji at lunch. 6 hours later, a doctor was telling me about traumatic brain injuries and internal bleeding, while Verona made phone calls about funeral homes and flower arrangements. The funeral home was exactly what I'd expected from Verona. The most expensive, the most prestigious, the most excessive. Riverside Memorial Chapel looked like a small cathedral, with stained glass windows and marble floors that echoed under our footsteps. The flowers alone must have cost $20,000, massive arrangements of white roses and lilies that filled the air with a sickly sweet perfume. "My God," my Uncle Porter muttered when we walked. Did she invite the entire country club? She had. The chapel was packed with people who'd never bothered to learn my name in 10 years of marriage. There was Judge Harrison and his wife, the ones who always forgot to invite me to their New Year's parties. The Weatherford family, who owned half the commercial real estate in the city and always looked at me like I was the help. Damon's Aunt Priscilla, who'd once told me to my face that I'd trapped her nephew with pregnancy. I recognized maybe 20 faces out of 300, and most of those were from my side of the family. We filled 2 pews. Verona's people filled the rest of the massive chapel. The eulogy started beautifully, which somehow made what came next even worse. Verona spoke about Damon's childhood with the kind of warmth I'd never heard from her before. She told the story of his first piano recital, how he'd forgotten the middle section but improvised something so beautiful the teacher asked him to write it down. She talked about the science fair where he'd built a working model of a water purification system and donated it to a local charity. For 10 minutes, she was just a grieving mother, and I found myself crying for her loss as much as mine. Then her tone shifted, like a door slamming shut. "My son's final years were complicated," she said, gripping the podium until her knuckles went white. She turned her body slightly, angling toward me, making sure everyone knew who she was about to destroy. "He made choices that disappointed our family deeply, choices that took him away from the life he was meant to live." My mother's hand found mine, squeezing so hard it hurt. I heard my father mutter something under his breath that sounded like a curse. Beside me, Keaton's little body went rigid. "Damon was raised with certain expectations," Verona continued, her voice growing stronger. "He understood his responsibilities to the family name, to the legacy we'd built. But sometimes, even the strongest men can be led astray by those who don't share their values or understanding of what truly matters in life." A murmur rippled through the crowd. People were actually nodding. Judge Harrison's wife leaned over to whisper something to the woman beside her, both of them looking directly at me. "He knew the burden he carried," Verona said, and now she wasn't even pretending not to stare at me. "The shame of choosing a life beneath his station. The embarrassment of bringing someone into our family who could never truly belong." "Mom, why is Grandma saying mean things?" Penny whispered, loud enough for the people in front of us to hear. My brother Garrett pulled her onto his lap, covering her ears, but Verona was just getting started. I tried to guide him back to the right path. We all did. His Aunt Priscilla introduced him to lovely young women from good families. His Uncle Richard offered him opportunities to travel, to gain perspective, but he remained trapped in a situation that was slowly destroying everything our family had built over 3 generations. My father started to stand. I grabbed his arm, pulling him back down. "Don't give her the satisfaction," I hissed, even as tears burned my eyes. I could feel the entire room watching us, waiting to see if we'd make a scene, prove Verona right about us being classless. "But at least," Verona continued, and her voice took on an almost triumphant quality, "he died before having to live with that shame any longer. Perhaps God showed mercy, freeing him from a marriage that was slowly destroying his spirit, his ambition, his very soul." The words hit me like physical blows. She was actually suggesting that death was better than being married to me, that God had killed her son to save him from me. "How dare you?" my brother Garrett said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Bethany was trying to hold him back, but he was already half standing. Verona ignored him completely. "Some of you knew about the problems in my son's marriage. The financial struggles because his wife refused to better herself, content to serve drinks in a bar despite having a husband who could have given her everything. The constant fights about money because she couldn't understand the importance of maintaining appearances. The way she isolated him from his true family and friends. Every word was a lie, but she delivered them with such conviction that people believed her. I could see it in their faces. The sympathy directed not at me, the widow, but at her, the mother who'd lost her son to a bad marriage. "I've consulted with our family attorneys," Verona announced, and this was clearly the real purpose of her speech. "Given Shelby's financial situation and questionable background, we'll be seeking custody of Keaton and Penny. The children deserve to be raised with proper advantages, not in some rental apartment by a woman who serves drinks for a living and can barely make ends meet." The room erupted. My father shouted something I'd never heard him say in public. 40 years of restraint gone in an instant. Garrett broke free from Bethany and started moving toward the podium. Uncle Porter was on his feet, his face purple with rage. Even some of Verona's crowd looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats at this unexpected turn. But in the chaos, one small voice cut through everything. "Grandma, you're lying." The entire chapel fell silent as every head turned to look at my 8-year-old son, standing in the front row with his father's phone clutched in his small hands. 8-year-old Keaton stood up in the front row, his father's phone clutched in his small hands like a shield. The entire room fell silent. 300 people holding their breath as my little boy faced down his grandmother. His black suit was too big for him, borrowed from a cousin, and his clip-on tie was crooked, but there was nothing small about his presence in that moment. "My dad wasn't ashamed," Keaton said, his voice trembling but carrying through the chapel with surprising clarity. "He loved my mom. He told me every single day that marrying her was the best decision he ever made." Verona's face went from red to white in seconds, like someone had drained all the blood from her body. "Keaton, sweetheart, sit down. You're confused. You're grieving. Children don't understand adult matters." "I understand plenty," Keaton shot back, and I saw Damon in him so clearly it took my breath away. That same stubborn set to his jaw, that same refusal to back down when he knew he was right. "Dad said you might try to hurt Mom after he was gone. He said you've been stealing from the company and blaming it on Mom. He said he had proof." Gasps echoed through the chapel. Judge Harrison actually dropped his hymnal. Aunt Priscilla's mouth fell open. Even my own family looked shocked. This was news to all of us. Verona took a step toward Keaton, her hands extended like she was approaching a wild animal. "Darling boy, you don't know what you're saying. Your father would never—" "He recorded something last week," Keaton interrupted, holding the phone higher. "He made me sit with him in his office while he did it. He said if anything happened to him, I should play it for everyone. He said the truth would protect us." I stood up, moving to my son's side. My legs felt like water, but Keaton needed me to be strong. I put my hand on his shoulder, feeling how badly he was shaking despite his brave face. "Keaton, honey, what did Daddy tell you to do?" "He said if Grandma ever tried to take us away or hurt you, I should press play." His thumb hovered over the phone screen, and I could see a voice recording app already open. He said sometimes adults try to hide the truth, but the truth always finds a way out. He said that's why he was teaching me to always be honest, even when it's scary. "This is ridiculous," Verona said, but her voice had lost its commanding tone. She looked around the room, seeking support, but even her allies seemed transfixed by the drama unfolding. "We're at a funeral, for God's sake." "This is neither the time nor the place for a child's fantasies." "Then why are you so scared?" my brother Garrett asked, stepping into the aisle. He positioned himself between Verona and us, a protective wall of brotherly rage. "If it's just a child's fantasy, what's the harm in listening?" Verona lunged forward suddenly, her composure finally cracking. "Don't you dare play that recording! I'm his mother! I have rights!" But Uncle Porter and my father moved together, blocking her path. Porter, all 6'4" of him, looked down at Verona with disgust. "The boy wants to share something his father left. You just gave a whole speech, now it's his turn. This is my son's funeral," Verona shrieked, all pretense of dignity gone. "I paid for everything. This is my event." "No," I said quietly, finding my voice at last. "This is Damon's funeral? And if he left, something he wanted shared, then we're gonna share it." I looked down at Keaton, my brave little boy who was carrying a burden no child should have to carry. "Are you sure about this, baby?" He nodded, then looked straight at Verona. "Dad said you would try to scare me. He said you would yell and threaten and maybe even cry, but he said I should be brave anyway because protecting our family was more important than being scared." The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. Even Penny had stopped fidgeting, sensing the importance of the moment. "He also said something else," Keaton added, his voice getting stronger. "He said if you tried to stop me from playing this, I should tell everyone about the papers he found, the ones that show you've been stealing money and putting Mom's name on documents she never signed." Verona stumbled backward, catching herself on a pew. "You don't understand what you're talking about." "Your father was confused. He was protecting us," Keaton said firmly, "just like he always did. And now it's my turn to protect Mom and Penny, just like he asked me to." I knelt beside my son, looking into those green eyes that were so much like his father's. "Play it, baby. Let's hear what Daddy wanted us to know." Keaton pressed play, and suddenly Damon's voice filled the funeral home, as clear and strong as if he were standing at the podium himself. The entire congregation seemed to lean forward, and I had to close my eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by hearing my husband speak one last time. "If you're hearing this, it means something's happened to me, and my mother is probably trying to destroy Shelby." Mom, I know about the embezzlement. $2.3 million over 5 years, all traced back to your personal accounts through a network of shell companies you thought were untraceable. The chapel erupted in whispers, but Damon's voice continued over the noise. I have copies of everything. Bank records showing transfers from the company accounts to offshore holdings in the Caymans, falsified invoices for properties that were never purchased, documentation where you forged Shelby's signature as the supposed authorization for these transactions. You were setting her up to take the fall if anyone discovered the missing money. Verona's legs gave out, and she collapsed into the nearest pew. Her perfectly styled hair was coming undone, and her face had gone gray. "Turn it off," she whispered, then louder. "Turn it off!" But Keaton held the phone higher, and Damon's voice continued relentlessly. "I confronted you last Thursday in your office. I gave you every opportunity to come clean, to make this right. Instead, you threatened Shelby. You said you'd destroy her reputation, make sure she never saw the children again if I exposed you. You said, and I'm quoting directly from the recording I made of that conversation, I'd rather see you dead than watch you waste your life with that piece of trash. If you try to expose this, I'll make sure she goes to prison for crimes she didn't commit. I have judges who owe me favors, prosecutors who attend my parties. She'll lose everything." Judge Harrison stood up abruptly and left, his wife scrambling after him. Several other prominent figures began edging toward the exits. The recording continued. "Well, Mom, you should know that I've arranged for all this evidence to be delivered to the FBI within 24 hours of my death, unless Shelby personally stops it. The passwords, the account numbers, the falsified documents, even recordings of you discussing your plans with Uncle Richard, who's been helping you hide the money. Oh yes, Richard, I know about your involvement too." Damon's Uncle Richard, who'd been sitting in the third row, made a break for the door, but found 2 FBI agents blocking his path. I hadn't even noticed them enter, but there they were, badges visible, hands resting on their weapons. "Shelby, baby, if you're listening to this," Damon's voice softened, and I felt tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was trying to protect you, to handle this without dragging you through the mud. I knew Mom would retaliate, and I wanted to make sure I had everything documented first. The password to the safety deposit box at First National is Keaton's birthday backward. Everything's there. Financial records, recordings, even video footage from the security cameras Mom didn't know I had access to." Keaton was crying now too, still holding the phone steady as his father's voice filled the space. "I want everyone listening to understand something. My mother built her empire on the image of a perfect family, but she's been stealing from her own company, from investors who trusted her, from charities she claimed to support. She's been using my wife's name to cover her tracks, preparing to sacrifice the mother of her grandchildren to save herself." "Lies!" Verona screamed, trying to stand but swaying dangerously. "It's all lies. He was sick, mentally unstable. That woman poisoned him against me." But Damon wasn't finished. "I've already sent copies to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the IRS, and the State Attorney General's office. They're probably processing warrants as you listen to this. Mom, you always said I should protect the family legacy. Well, I am. I'm protecting it from you." The FBI agents moved forward, one of them speaking quietly into his radio. More agents appeared at the other entrances, blocking all exits. "And Mom?" Damon's voice took on an edge I'd rarely heard. "I wasn't ashamed of my marriage. I was ashamed of you, ashamed that I stayed silent so long, that I let you treat Shelby like she was beneath us when she's the one who taught me what real love looks like. She's worth 1,000 of you." The recording went quiet for a moment. Then Damon spoke one last time. "Take care of our babies, Shelby. Teach them to be brave like their mom, not cowards like I was for too long. And remember, you're not just the love of my life. You're the one who saved it." The recording ended with a soft click, and the chapel fell into complete silence, except for Verona's ragged breathing and the sound of handcuffs being removed from an agent's belt. The funeral home emptied quickly after the FBE agents escorted Verona away in handcuffs. Her perfect makeup was streaked with mascara, her designer dress wrinkled, and she looked every one of her 58 years as she was led past the people she'd tried so hard to impress. Richard followed in separate custody, and I heard later that 3 more arrests were made that afternoon, all people who'd helped Verona hide her theft. Only our real family remained in the chapel, about 30 of us in a space meant for 300. Keaton was in my arms, finally letting himself sob the way 8-year-olds should when they've lost their father. His brave face had crumbled the moment the agents left, and now he was just my little boy again, confused and hurting and exhausted from carrying such a heavy secret. "Dad made me practice," he whispered against my shoulder. "Every day after school last week, he made me practice being brave. He said I might have to protect you and Penny, and I had to be ready." My father knelt beside us, this tough construction worker who'd built houses for 40 years, and I saw tears on his weathered face. "Your daddy was right to trust you, son. You did exactly what needed to be done." "But I didn't want to," Keaton admitted, his voice muffled. "I wanted Dad to be here to do it himself." "We all did, baby," I said, holding him tighter. "We all did." The funeral director, clearly shaken by what had transpired, approached nervously. "Mrs. Chen, would you like to continue with the burial service?" I looked around at the people who remained. My parents, Garrett and Bethany, Uncle Porter, my cousin Stella, who'd driven 6 hours to be here, Damon's colleague, Marcus, who'd always been kind to me despite Verona's influence, our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who'd babysat the kids countless times. These were the people who actually loved Damon, who knew him as more than just Verona's son or the heir to a real estate empire. "Yes," I said, "but just us. The real family." 3 months later, I sat in a lawyer's office as he explained the full extent of what Damon had uncovered. The embezzlement was actually closer to $4 million when they finished the forensic accounting. Verona had been stealing for 7 years, not 5, funding a secret gambling addiction and paying off massive debts from failed private investments she'd hidden from everyone. "Your husband was brilliant," the lawyer said, sliding documents across his desk. "He spent 6 months documenting everything, creating backups of backups. He even had a dead man switch set up through a service that would automatically send everything to authorities if he didn't check in every 3 days. The recovered money went to the defrauded investors first, but there was something else. Damon had a life insurance policy Verona didn't know about, one he'd purchased privately, that would take care of us for years. He'd also recorded dozens of video messages for the kids, one for every birthday until they turned 18. Graduation messages, wedding messages, even ones titled, "For when you have your first heartbreak" and "For when you become a parent." But the most precious thing we found was in that safety deposit box, a letter to me, handwritten on our wedding anniversary just 2 weeks before he died. "Shelby," it read, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone and Mom has shown her true colors. I'm sorry I couldn't fix this while I was alive. I kept thinking I'd find a way to stop her without destroying the family, but I finally realized she'd already destroyed it herself. You and the kids are my family. You always have been. Thank you for saving me from becoming her. Thank you for showing me that love isn't about money or status or bloodlines. It's about choosing each other every single day. I choose you even now, even from wherever I am, forever." Keaton keeps that recording on his tablet now, though he rarely plays it. Sometimes I find him in his room, holding the device but not pressing play, just knowing it's there if he needs it. He's in therapy, working through the trauma of keeping such a huge secret and having to be so brave so young. The therapist says he's remarkably resilient, but I see the shadows in his eyes sometimes, the way he checks door locks twice and keeps his phone always charged. Penny doesn't fully understand what happened, just that Grandma Verona went away and won't be coming back. She asks about her daddy every day, and we tell her stories, keeping him alive in the only way we can now. Verona writes letters from prison. I don't open them anymore. The first few were threats, then denials, then blame. The latest ones, according to my lawyer who screens them, are apologies. Maybe someday I'll be ready to read them. Maybe forgiveness will come. But not today. Today I'm focused on what Damon taught us through his final act of love. That truth is stronger than lies. That courage can come in the smallest packages. And that real family isn't about blood or money or power. It's about an 8-year-old boy standing up in front of 300 people to protect his mother. It's about a father who spent his last weeks making sure his family would be safe. It's about choosing love over fear, truth over comfort, and each other over everything else. Some people say Keaton saved us that day at the funeral, but I know the truth. Damon saved us. He just trusted our son to be his voice when he no longer could speak. And in the end, that trust, that love, that courage was more powerful than all of Verona's money and influence combined. That's the real legacy Damon left us. Not money or property or a family name, but the knowledge that love is worth fighting for, even from beyond the grave. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means everything, and it helps these important stories reach people who might be facing their own battles with family, loss, or standing up for truth. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life stories that remind us all of the strength of the human spirit. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. And remember, sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful truths. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.